In this demo, I'm going to be looking at your NWAR6221, that's Network Architecture B. So let's look at the POE document. In the POE document, it says that we need to do the following. The final part, or POE part 3, 60 marks. Now, the first section is part A, submission of part 1 with lecturer's feedback, evidence that the lecturer's feedback has been addressed. Submission of part 2 with lecturer's feedback, evidence that the feedback has been addressed. Report detailing improvements made on part 1 and part 2. So according to the marking rubric here, these are the documents that needs to be submitted. Submission of part 1 with lecturer's feedback, that you know, that's the original work that has been marked. Then evidence of the lecturer's feedback has been addressed. Show one thing that you have changed and explain that one thing that you have changed. Do the same with part 2, and then a report detailing improvements made on part 1 and part 2. The whole point of part A and part B, and then also part D, is to show that some learning has occurred. In other words, you've already completed part 1, you've already completed part 2. We want to see what have you learned from part 1, what have you learned from part 2, and what you can demonstrate it by performing. Say something was not done in part 1, you go and do it to complete it, or you did not receive 100% of your marks, then to show evidence of learning, you would go back and complete an activity. So let's give an example of each one of these. For part 1, what did we have a look at? In part 1, the activities were design an IP address plan, design a hierarchical switch topology, design a network diagram, and then design an Active Directory logical diagram. So let's say, for example, I didn't do activity 4, which was the Active Directory logical diagram, or I did an Active Directory logical diagram, but it did not match the case study. In other words, I took a generic diagram from the internet, and it was not according to my case study. Remember, according to my case study, I should have Johannesburg Sandton office, I should have Pretoria Menlyn office, and in each of these offices, I should have these organizational units. I should have 2 sites on that diagram, and then I should have users that are created, groups that are created, accounts that are created, and I should show a group policy object as well. So according to the marking rubric, let's look at the marking rubric for that section. Part 1, there's the marking rubric here: correct representation of VTG forest and domain, sites and subnets, group policy objects, organizational units, users, and groups. So if any one of these were not included, then I would include it in an updated diagram. So I can go to my existing diagram, make a change, and then explain what changes were made. That's all that you need to do for part 1. Then for part 2, what did we do? Install and configure Windows Server 2016 routing, Active Directory installation and configuration. You installed Active Directory. Now this was done for what? For your VTG forest. Then you installed DHCP, and then you joined Windows 10 to the domain. So let's take an example of me not joining Windows 10 to the domain. How was the marks allocated here? Let's go to activity 4. Here, Windows 10 client successfully installed and named correctly. Windows 10 client configuration received via DHCP, and the client has successfully logged on and joined the VTG domain. This we have done in the first year. There were videos that showed you how to join a client to the domain, how to ensure that you've got your client IP address from DHCP. So if any one of these items were not done, or where you didn't receive full marks, you will just say, okay, I did not configure my client to get the address via DHCP. I put a static IP address. So the corrections made was that I then correctly configured my DHCP, and I got the client to receive the IP address from the DHCP server. So that's the improvements that were made here. So you'll show evidence of that improvement, and then you'll explain how that was done. So choose any one or maybe two things that you can make improvements on or have learned since completing part 1 and part 2. That is what's required for this section here that says evidence that the feedback has been addressed and a report detailing the improvements. Submission of your ICE task and an ICE task report. They've given us details as to what needs to be completed there. This is not the first time we are doing these activities, so I'm not going into it in detail. The self-reflection, remember that there's two parts to the self-reflection. That's your report, and then the self-evaluation, which is the table that they give us to evaluate ourselves. So make sure that you've included both of those questions. So in other words, answer all of these questions, and then here the self-evaluation rubric. It is important for you to complete these things, because if we look at the mark allocation here, let's look at the mark allocation for the POE. So that's 10 marks, 15 marks, and then 5 marks. That's 20 out of the 60, which is 33%. 33% you should get 100% for. You just complete the activities as I have explained, and you've already got 33% or 20 out of the 60 marks. Now let's look at how to get the 40 marks here. In this section, they want us to look at 4 activities to complete: implementing Active Directory objects, mapping shared user drives, group policy implementation, and then cloud integration through Azure Active Directory. The first activity: create all the required Active Directory objects designed in part 1 of activity 4, especially the organization, or specifically the organizational units, user accounts, and group accounts and sites. Note that users' accounts are not to be created manually due to the large number of user accounts. Your lecturer will guide you through automation of user account creation using a script, batch, or CSV.de file, which is much quicker and simpler way to make users. Marking rubric. Let's look at the mark allocation now. VTG organizational unit structure is properly created and implemented. Now, what does that mean? I need to have created my VTG. Okay, let's read this in the entirety. User accounts are successfully created. They give us 4 marks. Security groups are successfully created and users are added. They give us 2 marks for that. And then Active Directory implementation mirrors Active Directory logical diagram. That's okay. That's 2 marks, and then that's going to give us 10 marks in total. So the first one is about creating objects in Active Directory. And then they also said we can create multiple users using a CSV.de file or CSV file. Configure activity 2 is about configuring file sharing between 2 different VTG technology groups, and each user is able to have access to the following shared drives: a personal home directory, a department shared drive, a public share. Appropriate NTFS and share permissions are applied to the user and the group level for all of the storage devices, and students are to choose their own drive letters. They've given us an example here. So you've got a public drive, you've got a departmental drive, and then you've got a user's individual drive. Due to the large number of users, students need not provide evidence for all departments. Students must choose 2 users from 2 research departments for evidence of drive mapping. So we're going to use that as the instructions for the rest of the POE as well. 2 users and 2 departments. Then home directories are mapped. Shared common drive is mapped. Shared public drive is mapped. Proper NTFS permissions are implemented and successfully implemented. Third activity, security is of utmost importance, the VTG. Now notice I'm going through the entire document or all of the work that needs to get done so that I have a good plan as to how I'm going to tackle this. If I get stuck in question 1, I'm going to then complete those activities that I can do and then come back to that activity. Remember, the objective is to get the maximum amount of marks here and complete the activities. Security is of utmost importance on the VTG network as they will be storing top secret research data. Using the default domain group policy object, configure the following security settings. This has been done a number of times, so this should not be too difficult to do as well. So these are the settings that you need to configure and then show evidence of doing that. Enter the following text for this setting. No downloading, okay, that's user account control. Okay, the mark allocation. VTG password policy is implemented, 3 marks for that. VTG account lockout policy is implemented, 3 marks for that. And VTG additional security settings are implemented, 4 marks for that. So I need to configure all of these settings using my default domain group policy object. Activity 4, as part of the midterm strategic plan, the directors of VTG have requested a detailed report detailing the benefits and adoption of migrating to Microsoft Azure. Wrong spelling there. Using the hybrid cloud model. Hybrid means we've got a copy of Active Directory on the local server and a copy on the cloud. Research and write a technical report on how VTG can leverage Microsoft Azure to mitigate its existing on-premises infrastructure with cloud, deliberately focusing on the benefits of such a hybrid model. Hybrid again, both local and in the cloud. Use the following format subheadings to create your report, and then they go through the different report headings. So in this section, it is a theory question that wants us to, now we've given you guidelines on how to create these kind of documents previously. Introduction, overview of Microsoft Azure, integration with Microsoft 365, support for mobile device management, architectural diagram, and conclusion. So this you can easily find by looking at the Azure cloud integration. So what I can do here is I can go and I can search and I can say Active Directory. Active Directory, Windows Server 2016, Azure Cloud, integration. Here we go. Connecting Windows Server to Azure Hybrid Services. Okay, so then they give you some information here. You can go through this. and then join a Windows Server VM to Azure Cloud Services, Microsoft Server, and Azure Management on Learn. Okay, that's a Microsoft website. Azure Active Directory, connect now to Windows Server. There's the integration of Azure and Office 365, which is Microsoft 365. Okay, and then they've got some videos on how to do this as well. So there's sufficient information, and you would look at Microsoft, primarily Microsoft sources. So there's all of the information that you need and all of the info, links to the articles, and you'll find more. So there's your hybrid services here. Connecting Windows Server to Azure hybrid services, and they'll go through and give you the details here. Okay, so that's where I'm going to find all of my information for this question here. So that's covered. Now let's look at the other questions. Question 3, default domain policy. You've already created Active Directory group policy objects. Let me see what I have here. If I go into, this is my client. There's my server. So they said on my server now, I need to go to the default domain controllers policy. So group policy management console. So server manager, I can go to tools, GPMC, group policy management, there's it there. So in my domain, which is subainvtg.com, there's my default domain policy here. So they said in the default domain policy, you have selected to link a group policy object except for changes will impact the rest of those policies that are linked. Okay, that's fine. So now the default domain policy I can see is this one here. I can right click on it and then I can say edit it. Then it comes up with the group policy management editor. In the group policy management editor, I'm then going to browse under computer policies. Is it administrative templates or Windows settings? So under Windows settings, I've got security settings. And then there's my account policies. And there's the password policy here. Okay, so then I'm just going to double click on each of these and I'm going to make changes according to what's required. So here they are talking about, let me go back and see, enforce password history, minimum password age, and they give us all of these values. So that's the first one. Account lockout policy settings. There's account lockout policy settings. I'll double click on the account lockout policy settings and I'll set them appropriately. Additional security settings, interactive logon, etc. Where are these settings? They will be, so security settings, local policy settings, security options, okay? So there's interactive log on. You'll see that there's interactive log on here. So interactive log on, what do they say here? Do not require Control Alt Delete. So I'll go in here and I'll look for interactive logon. Do not require Control Alt Delete, and then I'll define the policy setting here. Okay. So what else are they asking us to do? Additional security settings. So those are all the additional security settings. Okay. So then of each of these that you have configured, according to this diagram, you'll need to take the relevant screenshot to show that the settings have been configured. For password policy, it's just one screenshot that I will take. Account lockout policy, it will be one screenshot. So for example, when I'm looking at the password policy here, this one screenshot shows me all the settings and what have been set here. Can you see? These were all of the settings. The account lockout policy, it shows me all three settings that I've set here. When you get to your security options here, if you, let's say, for example, now here there's multiple settings. If it's not clear, then because they've got user account settings, they've got multiple settings. So then you will take, for example, they spoke about the interactive logon, Control Alt Delete. Right, so there's interactive logon, Control Alt Delete. So if I cannot see all of the settings and you cannot explain it from one screenshot, then in this question, you'll take multiple screenshots to show what has been set. Okay, so those are with regards to the screenshots that needs to be taken for this question. Anything else? Okay, so that's configuring your group policy object, and that covers question number or activity 3. Moving on to activity 2 now, creating home directories and then common drives and the public drive and NTFS share permissions. This we have done previously as well in the first year. So looking at this example now, did I close that server? Okay. My client is running, and then I want to go to my server. Okay, so let's see on this what if I do have tools, Active Directory users and computers. Okay, so in this one, I haven't created all of the users, but just for the demo, I'm going to create an organizational unit and then the group and then the users, etc., to show you what is required. So this one here is my Pretoria. Office. So in the Pretoria office, what do I need to have? Let me go to my Pretoria office. Right, so Pretoria office, ICTD. And I've got 10 employees here. So PTA, ICTD. Right, PTA, ICTD. Let me go into my server, and I'm going to create an OU. Just create an OU. This is my VTG underscore PTA underscore IC. What was it? ICTD. ICT department. Okay. So that's the name of my organizational unit. And inside this organizational unit, I'm going to create a group and a user. So now when they say create security groups, can you see under the group type, you can choose either security or distribution. And then group scope, it also says whether it must be local, global, or universal. So actually, just let me just rename this one. I want to rename it. And I want to say underscore OU. So there's no confusion. So inside this one, I'm going to create a group, and I'm going to also, it's VTG underscore PTA underscore, this is ICTD underscore GRP for group. It's a security group, and it's a global security group. Okay. So I can see now I've created a security group, and that's the name of that security group. And then inside here, I'm going to create also a user. So my user is going to be PTA ICTD user. I'm just going to call it user 1. Okay, and that's going to be my logon name as well. PTA ICTD user 1. Now this will be people's first names and surnames ordinarily, but just for the demo, we're going to be using these kind of names. And then I'll go PCT ICTD user 1. And then password, I'm going to set it to password cannot change, it never expires. And password 1. Right, so I've got my user. I'm going to add my user to the group. So I can just go to members, and I can say add. And what's this user? It is PTA, and I'm going to say check names, and then it's going to find the user for me, and I'm going to say okay. So I've added the user to the group, and okay as well. This is just revision of what we've done previously. Then on the server, I need to decide where are my home group, public group folders going to be created. Now, so I'll open up my File Explorer. So on the File Explorer, on my local disk C, I'm going to create a folder. And I'm going to say it's shared folders. So in shared folders, I'm going to create now a new folder. And this is going to be for user shares. Then the department that we are currently working on is VTG, PTA, ICTD, ICDTD, and this is so this is the group folder, so department folder. So I'm going to say DEPT. That's the department folder. And then the public folder for all users in Pretoria, I'm going to create a new folder, and it's going to be VTG PTA. VTG. And this is going to be for the entire PTA. I can call this, okay, PTG. It's fine as it is. So there's the 3 levels of folders that I need to create. One is just for the user. Then one is for the public. In other words, all users in PTA needs to have access to this folder. And this folder here is only for the department. So I've created it in my shared folders. So let me go back and look at what is required now. Okay, public drive, common drive, and then the user's drive is that needs to be mapped. So you create the folders, and then now in the user, you need to then allow the user to map these folders. Two departments for 2 drive mappings. Okay. And then also the share permissions that needs to be set as well. Home drives are mapped, common drives are mapped, and then the public drives are mapped, and then NTFS and share permissions. So let's have a look at that. So let's have a look at the department on this folder. So for share and NTFS permissions, I will go to the properties of that folder. Sharing tab is what you need to take a picture of. So I'm going to go to share this to who? I can go to advanced sharing. I want to share this as the ICTD department. Who must have permissions to this? I want to add the group PTA. Let me check names. Now this is the user. I don't want just the user. I want to add the group. The group must have access to this folder. So I'm looking for PTA. Find now. Oh, PTA Z I've got here. I've got the user. It's looking for, I want to find the group and give the group access. What was the group called? VTG PTA. Okay, VTG. So it's VTG. Okay, there's the group I can see. I'm going to click to add the group, and I'm going to say, okay. Share permissions, I'm going to allow them, if they've not specified, I'm going to give them full control. This user now, I don't need to have here. I'm going to remove it, okay? And then everyone, I don't need to have everyone there as well. I can remove that as well. or I can give them read access if it's required. Okay, so for this one now, I can see my share permissions have been set. I'll take a screenshot of this one to show my share permissions. Apply. Okay. Apply. Okay. And I can see there's the path to that shared folder. So this path comes in where I'm giving the user access to this shared folder. Okay. Or I'm going to create a mapping. Remember, I can create mappings here where I can say in the user's account, I can go to the account tab and look at the profile. Okay, there's profiles that I've got here. So I can set a home directory path. Okay, and then I can, profile is for the user account settings. Home directory is going to connect to a specific drive. Okay, so we want to connect to a drive, but we haven't shared that folder yet. So let's see the Z drive. I want to give the user access to this folder here. Close, close. I'm done with that one. Okay, cancel. File Explorer. So this is my users directory here. So this one, who needs to have access to that? Okay, for this example, I'm just calling it user, and then I'm going to we can give it a better name than this is PTA. VTG, PTA, etc. But just to simplify it, I'm going to use it as user. And then I'm going to add. Here it's there's my PTA user. And going to give full control to my PTA user. Everyone I don't need there, I can remove. So this is the path that I need. I'm going to copy that, and I'm going to go to my Active Directory again. Connect the Z drive to this folder here. Apply. Okay. Right. And then we need to now map those drives. So where do I go now? I need to log in as this user, PTA-ICTD user. So I'm going to go to my client. Sign into PTA VTG user 1, and it should be password 1. PTA VTG user 1. PTA ICTD user 1. So these mappings we would generally do using a script, or alternatively we would do using a group policy object. But I'm just going to do the simplest way in which to do it. Now you'll see I'm doing it fairly manually. So I don't want that. Let's just turn that on. Right. So when I go to this PC, I can see that I've got a mapped network drive that's here already. Okay. I can right click here and I can say add network location, and I can then browse. No, I don't want to do this. I want to create a map network drive. So map network drive, there's map network drive here with different drive letters. So I need to now create what is those map drive letters, map drives that I want to connect to. So on my server, I want to create VTG PTA, right? So this one here, was it shared? So VTG PTA was not shared, so I'm going to share that now. And I want to copy this VTA PTG share, go back to my client. So No, it's not showing me the, okay. Let me just turn network and sharing center on here. But it should be able, VTG, GP, VT, Subin, VTG, PTA. Right. Then we go back. So backslash Subin, VTG, PTA, backslash the name of the share. And it was VTG, PTA. VTG, PTA. By default, it selected the wide drive. You don't have permission, okay? So we need to then give the correct permissions here. So here now I'm going to go to VTG PTA. Advanced sharing, permissions, everyone, administrators. I'm going to add, which was the group, PTA, check names. The user, no, I'm not going to add a user. I'm going to add VTG. I'm going to add the group. Yeah, there's the ICTD group. So I'm going to give them full control. So they've got share permissions, security. Do they have? I'm going to edit, and I'm going to add VTG. So I've given them permissions to this folder, and then the ICTD department as well. This one we've shared, so security. So they should have permissions to all these folders now. And I go back to my client. Right, so on the client now, I've got user, I've got this one, and then I'm going to add the last one. So I go right click here, map network drive, and then it's giving me the X letter. So it's going to be backslash Subin VTG PTA backslash, what is the name of that shared folder? VTGPTA ICTD department. Is it 2 Ds or 1 D? Let's see. 2 Ds. And finish. Okay. So then I've created now all of my 3 drives here that I need. X, Y, and Z drives with the VTGPTA, my user drive, and then my department drive. So I've got all 3 drives that have been created, and then you'll show the relevant permissions as well. You do this for 2 users and 2 departments. Then the last question is looking at organizational unit hierarchy is properly implemented. VTG user accounts are successfully created. Security groups are created. Users are added. And then Active Directory implementation mirrors your Active Directory logical diagram. So in here, what needs to be done, and I'm going to do a separate demo on this one, but it does not prevent you from completing and taking your screenshots now, right? You are going to create those users manually, okay? Because for the purposes of the screenshot, to get all of these marks, you just need 2 users, 2 groups, 2 organizational units, okay, from both Johannesburg and from Pretoria. So we're not going to spend a lot of time on importing all of the users, etc. I'm going to do a separate video on that, importing using the Excel spreadsheet that we will create. The tendency is people will get stuck there and they're not complete and get maximum marks here. So you do this manually, okay, for 2 users, 2 groups, you create them, and then you complete all the activities and take the screenshots. And for that extra 1 mark is the importing and exporting using CSV.DE, batch file, or scripting, okay? So that's only 1 mark. Now, organizational structures are implemented. What do you need for organizational OU structure? You would have done this already. If you have not done this already, then you create the OUs. So in your Pretoria, you need to have ICTD, you need to have management, you need to have operations, you need to have software development, artificial intelligence, mobile devices, and robotics. In mine, currently, what do I have? I've only created ICTD. So if I go to the server, I can see under Active Directory that I've got VTGPTA ICTD OU, right? You need to have created for all of the other departments. So that's the screenshot that you will take there to show that all of the different departments have been created. Then what's the next screenshot? So the first one is all the OUs. You'll show all the OUs for Pretoria and for Johannesburg. That's your 2 marks. User accounts are created. You're going to show me for 2 organizational units, okay? So in ICTD, I've got 10 users. So in my example, you need to have 10 users in your ICT department, and then you'll also show a screenshot of another department with the correct number of users according to the table. In the table, they showed us how many users needs to be there. So you show me that according to the table. Then security groups are successfully created and users are added. You do that as well for 2 examples that we have done earlier. So let's go back there. There's a security group that was created. It says security group. And then the user members of the security group, I can see the users have been added. Here, I need to have 10 users that have been added. So this is the screenshot that I will take here with my 10 users that have been added to the security group. You'll do this for 2 departments. And then, so successfully created and added 2 marks, so for 2 departments. Then Active Directory implementation mirrors the Active Directory logical diagram. Now this one here is showing the sites and services. So in other words, in your Active Directory sites and services, I'll go back to Server Manager, Tools, Active Directory Sites and Services. So default first site name, that would have to be renamed, right? So this one here is VTG underscore PTA site. And then I will create new site. VTG underscore JHB. Okay, so I'm going to show both now. I'll need to add the relevant servers, etc. This we've done something similar to this in the NTAD, or you can look for additional examples. So here you're going to show the sites that have been set up, as well as Active Directory, users and computers. So you can show this screenshot here as well with all of your different organizational units. So you'll show all the organizational units here. And then also for the Pretoria, you'll show all of the, so for Pretoria, all the OUs, and then also for Johannesburg. But once you've integrated the both, they should actually show. So in my example, the servers are not connected to each other, but when you connect the servers to each other, you should be able to see both of them. So in the next demo that I do, I will show an example of that. Okay, so now this clearly illustrates exactly what is meant to be done. What are the screenshots that needs to be taken for your POE? So I've started from the back and come to the front, and then this thing here that usually will stump us and allow us not to move forward, I said I'll do a separate video on that, but without the importing of all of the users' accounts, which is only one mark, okay? You complete all of the activities until you receive, so if you want that additional mark, then you'll do that additional work here for importing all of the users automatically. And that concludes this demo.